Hey, Facebook. I just wanted to try something. I've never done this before, but I don't know. I've been kind of looking at things like studying and all that, and I wanted to start something called lunch lessons, like Bible lessons, because I get a lot of my ideas while I'm at work, but then by the time I get off work, I'm like, I don't feel like recording. I don't feel like doing all that. But I wanted to start something where, like, when I'm on my lunch breaks, like doing some type of like Bible discussion for anyone who might be interested. Please let me know and we can maybe do some collaborating. But one thing that I wanted to talk about today, I'm supposed to be teaching Bible study tomorrow. The people that may be in the Bible study may not even be on my live, so hopefully I'm not like giving anything away, but we're supposed to be in Deuteronomy right now for Bible study. And tomorrow we are going over Deuteronomy chapters 20 through 26. And one of the sections that stood out to me, and I just kind of wanted to throw it out there for, anybody who wanted to like give feedback. One of the verses in that section, where is it? Questions. Where did it go? Anyways, Deuteronomy 20. Deuteronomy verse chapter 20. And that whole chapter is talking about war. Like what it was like when the Israelites were getting prepared for war. And let me see, where do I start? I'll just start at verse 1. When you go to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots and an army greater than yours, do not be afraid of them, because the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt, will be with you. When you are about to go into battle, the priest shall come forward and address the army. So like that's the one thing that I wanted to start at, where the priest comes and he addresses the army. There were certain people in this text, in this chapter, there were certain people that were allowed to not go. They were allowed to stay home. And I was trying to see who is exempt. Okay, so the other thing, there's a book, and my library actually has it. So like I make copies, I pay for copies so I can take them so I can, facilitate the Bible study. But one of the questions was, who is exempt from war service? And it listed some people that were exempt. And that part, so starting at verse 5, still again, Deuteronomy chapter 20. The officer shall say to the army, has anyone built a new house and not yet begun to live in it? Let him go home, or somebody else will live in it if he dies. If they've planted a garden, that person is allowed to be exempt. If they are pledged to a woman to be married to, they're exempt from going into the army. But the one verse that I wanted to kind of shed light on, verse 8 says, then the officer shall add, is anyone afraid or faint-hearted? Let him go home so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too. I'm struggling with that verse. And I'm going to tell you why. I get what they're saying. I get that they're saying the weak-hearted back then. Hey, Sam. I get what they're saying, that they don't want those that are scared or fearful, to be in the battlefield with the other strong people, because they may get, a little disheartened because the weaker people are kind of like, maybe speaking negative or things like that. That is a true statement. You don't want anyone that is on a lower, spiritual level than you around you at times, because they may pull you down. If you're positive and you're around a lot of negative people, it may be negative people that pull you down. But that's not what we're talking about here. What I want to talk about is the fact that these men, if they were to come forward and say, well, I'm scared, I don't want to go, I don't want to be in war, they were allowed to not go. They could go home while their brothers were out fighting, because we're not going to say brothers and sisters. It's not 21st century. It was back then. The women were at home. So while their brothers were out fighting, they were allowed to sit at home and be afraid. So my question is, or the question that I want to pose is, was that fair? Was that fair that these men, just because they were afraid, was it fair that they were allowed to sit at home and chill at the house while everybody else was putting their lives on the line to fight a battle? That, I get what, like I said, I get what the verse is saying. Let him go home so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened as well. But then in a greater sense, I want to pose the question of, a lot of times when we're fearful, we run from a battle. We go back home while everybody else is fighting the good fight. As Christ followers, we may become fearful and we go running because we're like, okay, well, we'll let the other stronger folks deal with the battle. I feel like that's not fair. It's like we're enabling, that's my word today. We're enabling the those that are weaker or more, they're not as strong. They're not as brave to want to go out there. So that's my question. That's my question. If anyone who, kind of wants to give feedback to that or wants to add to that, or anybody, doing the Bible studies or, in the pulpit want to give me some feedback, maybe I can look at it differently. I know what the text is saying. I know why they're saying these particular men should stay home. I'm just posing a different question I'm posing a question, was that fair? How was that fair that they were allowed to stay home while everybody else went on to go and fight? And in present day, is it fair to our faith walks? Is it fair for us to be fearful and draw back just because we're afraid? So I don't want to start rambling, but yeah, lunch lessons. I'm going to see how far I can take this. Let me see how many days I'll do this, because sometimes I don't pack a lunch. So, I might want to go get me something to eat. But on the days that I can, I do want to come on here and start, posing a question or maybe just sharing what I have studied. And today I went over Deuteronomy chapter 20, specifically verse 8. So if y'all have feedback, if y'all have something you want to share, just let me know. I hope y'all have a good rest of your Tuesday.